Welcome back to Blacklit Memory. Tonight, we head deep into the Appalachian dark, where old paths shift and names don't echo back. I've brought 8 more true accounts, a bell that rings before the missing, footprints that go the wrong way, a voice that wears your own face. These aren't stories to entertain. They're survival notes left by those who almost didn't. Like, subscribe, and tell me where you're listening from. Especially if something once walked behind you that shouldn't have. Now hush the world and listen close. It was early October when the mist began curling low through the trees, creeping along the Blue Ridge like something alive. I was 34 then, a freelance photographer who'd made a habit of chasing moonlight through Appalachia, always in search of shadow play and places too quiet for the world to follow. Craggy Gardens, near milepost 364, had that stillness. I told myself I was there for the long exposures, sauces, solved the rare fog formations, but maybe I was after something lonelier. The kind of silence that stares back. I'd just finished a few wide shots when I saw it off trail, about 50 yards in. A soft, orange glow like a lantern swaying gently through the trees. It wasn't coming from the road or any campsite I knew. No beam, no flicker from a fire, just a steady light floating midair. Too far to be casual, too strange to ignore. I figured maybe a ranger was out on patrol, or another hiker had set up illegally. Either way, I should have stayed put. But I didn't. I grabbed my gear and followed. Slow through the underbrush, my boots slipping over wet leaves and old branches. The deeper I went, the more the air seemed to press in cooler, quieter. The lantern kept its distance, never speeding away, never stopping. Like it knew I was coming and didn't mind. Like it wanted to be seen. 10 minutes in, I stopped. The light was still there, hanging maybe 6 feet off the ground, but there was no tree above it. No branch, just a floating source of light. Swaying as though caught in a wind I couldn't feel. That's when I heard it. My name Tom whispered in the dark, barely louder than a breath. I turned fast, heart thudding, scanning for whoever was playing games. But there was nothing, only trees. Close and damp, crowding the dark, I whispered back. Who's there? No reply, just a shift in the quiet. Not footsteps, more like the silence itself moved. I tried not to run, but something in my gut twisted when I looked down at the trail behind me. My footprints were reversed. Every single one of them now pointed the wrong direction, heel to toe, leading deeper into the forest instead of out. I crouched down, thinking maybe I'd spun around and gotten disoriented. But no, the marks were mine. Clear as anything, just wrong. I felt a tug in my chest then. Not fear exactly, more like gravity pulling sideways. Like I'd stepped into a current. I bolted. No camera, no light, just sprinting through dark and undergrowth, trying to find the trail again. The compass at my hip bounced uselessly, the needle spinning once and then stopping, pointing straight at me. I checked it 3 times. Same result. I stopped laughing long enough to admit I might be in real trouble. Eventually, I stumbled into a hollow ring of old stones, mossy logs, the bones of someone's forgotten fire. I sat, shaking, trying to convince myself I'd just gotten turned around. That fog does strange things to the mind. That maybe I was tired. I didn't believe it. Not really. That's when I saw the light again. The lantern was back. Now, only 20 feet away. Still floating. Still swaying. But this time, it was dimmer, pulsing faintly like it was running out of breath. I raised the camera instinctively, aimed through the branches, and clicked. Then again. "Thomas!" The voice was in my ear this time, cold and close. I spun around, nearly dropping the camera. Nothing. Still nothing. But the air had turned sharper, and my breath fogged out in front of me now, even though I hadn't felt any drop in temperature. That strange silence had returned too round, like the woods were listening. I looked at the photo. No lantern, just the trees, black and gnarled, and in the corner, almost lost in shadow, was a figure, back turned, arms at its sides, facing deeper into the woods. I couldn't see a face, but I stared too long. Anyway, my hands began to shake. The lantern was gone. In its place, driven into the soil like a stake, was the same branch it had been hanging from. No tree, just that crooked limb, stuck upright between the stones of the hollow's fire ring. I checked my gear, one lens cracked. No signal on my phone. I don't even remember turning on airplane mode. But there it was. I stood again and picked a direction, any direction, and walked. 20 minutes, maybe 30, keeping my pace steady and not looking back. When I found the hollow again, same stones, same branch I knew. Knew I hadn't left at all. This time, the lantern's branch was lying across the stones like it had been set down gently. I sat. I closed my eyes. Not to sleep, just to stop thinking. That's when I noticed what was missing. No wind, no insects, not even the sound of my own breath. Just one thing. A soft snap in the distance, like a footstep. Then another, and another. Getting closer. I opened my eyes. But I didn't stand. I don't know why. Maybe I thought whatever was coming wouldn't move if I didn't. The footsteps, or what sounded like footsteps, stopped just before they should have reached the clearing. I waited. Nothing came. Nothing moved. But the air pressed colder on my shoulders, like frost threading under my jacket. Something was watching, and not from far, after what felt like an hour. I made myself stand and walk again. I chose a different path this time. Turning left at a crooked cedar I didn't remember seeing before. The ground felt different beneath my boots, softer somehow. Not quite mud, but not earth either. It didn't make sense. But then, nothing had since the first whisper. I passed a tree with a deep gash in its bark and marked it with my knife. 10 minutes later, I passed it again. The same gash, same notch, same bent nail sticking out near the roots. I began to speak aloud, hoping the sound of my voice might anchor me. "You're tired, that's all," I muttered. "You're lost and scared, and it's just the dark playing tricks." Saying it didn't help. It only made the silence worse when I stopped. I turned on my camera's mic and started recording, not for footage, but to prove I was real. October 12th. I said, somewhere off the parkway. I've been walking for... I glanced at my watch, but the screen was blank. Dead. I tapped it, but nothing. So I pulled out my phone. It still showed the time, 2:17 a.m. But when I tried checking the date, the screen flashed once and went black. I was about to put it away when I noticed something on the screen's reflection just behind me. Faint. Almost not there. A glow. I turned. Slowly. The lantern had returned. Only this time, it wasn't hanging. It was sitting on the ground, placed dead center on a rotted stump. Around it, the grass had yellowed, curled inward like it had been burned. I approached, drawn without thought, camera hanging limp at my side. As I stepped into the circle of its light, everything shifted. The forest was the same, but not. Trees leaned subtly in, branches curled like hands. The light didn't flicker anymore. It held steady, unnatural. There was a smell in the air I hadn't noticed before, like candle wax and wet stone. I reached for the lantern without meaning to, just needing something real. But before my hand touched it, I heard it again. Thomas Grant. It was my father's voice. He died 4 years ago in a river not far from here. That voice, calm, steady, never raised, spoke only those 2 words. I stumbled back, my breath catching, my vision spinning. The lantern's glow pulsed once. When I blinked, it was gone again. In its place, carved into the stump, was my name. Not scratched with a knife or etched by hand, but burned in, clean and deliberate. That was the first time I truly considered I might not leave. I turned and ran again, following nothing. No path, no logic. Branches tore at my sleeves. Thorns I hadn't seen before scraped my face. The forest twisted. Sometimes I thought I saw movement ahead, flickers of orange, a coat like mine, a silhouette just out of reach. When I finally collapsed, it was near a stream I didn't remember passing before. I drank, hands shaking, unsure if the water was safe. I didn't care. It tasted like iron. There was a ridge ahead, maybe 20 feet up, and I thought, if I can just see where I am, I can find the road. I climbed, slipped twice, caught myself. At the top, I looked down. My footprints were there, but not where I had just walked. They were already on the ridge, pressed deep into the moss, leading away. I followed them. I don't know why. Maybe because they were the only real thing left. They led me in a straight line through thicker woods, across 2 dry creek beds, until I saw the edge of the trail, the real one, with a signpost and an old wooden mile marker 364. I stepped onto the gravel and breathed. My knees gave a little. I laughed, then cried. I didn't move for a long time. When I finally did, I walked the whole way back to my car without stopping, never looking behind me. The sun was rising when I turned the ignition. The fog had burned off. There was no lantern, no branch, nothing. But when I got home and loaded the memory card, I found only one file, a photo I didn't remember taking. It showed the hollow, the stone ring, the mossy log, and at the center, the lantern burning bright. Behind it, a figure, back turned, arms limp at its sides, wearing my jacket. They told me the land up near Beach Mountain had gone quiet after the old snow came in too early. I was 62 then, a hunter more out of habit than necessity. My name's Edsel Pike, and I've spent more nights under sky than roof. I wasn't looking for company, just game tracking signs of deer that had come down lower than usual. I knew these woods like the shape of my own hands, and that's why I stopped cold when I saw smoke curling from the chimney of a cabin I'd never seen before. It was set back in a clearing I don't recall from any map or memory. Weathered wood, sagging roof, but the fire inside still burned. Not glowing coals, live flame, fresh fed. It was near midnight. The cold had pushed hard, and the silence was wrong. Even the owls had gone mute. I should have walked past, Told myself it was some late-season squatter. But I've lived long enough to know when something's been waiting. I approached slow, rifle in hand but barrel low. The door was closed, latch rotted. I called out once, twice. No answer. But inside, through the glass, I could see the hearth, flame moving like breath. The strange thing, no woodpile, no footprints, no sound but the fire. I opened the door. The cabin was empty, dust thick on everything but the floor near the fire, which had no ash pile, no tools, just flame. I stayed only minutes, circled once, found no signs of living or leaving. No food, no bedding. But the strangest thing, a sharp scent in the air, like cedar and something sweet, gone sour. I backed out and didn't close the door. Something about it felt unfinished. I set camp a half-mile north, far enough to sleep without seeing the chimney. That night, I heard chopping, just after midnight. 3 distinct strikes. Then silence. The kind that waits for you to breathe wrong. I sat up, grabbed the rifle, but didn't move. Trees don't echo that way. The next night, it came again. Same hour. More strikes, 4 this time. Rhythmic, like someone with a rhythm, not just working. And again, when I rose and opened the tent, the forest swallowed the sound whole, dead still. By the 3rd night, I was waiting. I didn't sleep, just sat with the fire low and ears open. When the chopping came 5 swings, sharp, closer than before I stood. I walked back toward the cabin. The smoke was gone now. No light inside, just the faintest glimmer of steel near the stump out front. I stepped close. A bloody axe stood buried blade up in the wood. No handle prints, no blood trail, just the axe, fresh. I touched it, still warm. I looked around, no sign of anything alive. But in that moment, something shifted in the trees behind me. A pressure, like being watched by something that didn't need to blink. I stayed the night in the cabin. Don't ask why I couldn't have told you then. But some part of me thought it would end if I didn't run. I fed the fire, watched the shadows crawl, listened for chopping that never came. At some point, I slept and dreamed. In the dream, I was in my own house, younger, but the windows were wrong. Taller. Someone was outside chopping wood. I couldn't see him, just the motion. Back and forth. The sound never changed. Even in the dream, I knew something was off. I woke before dawn to the fire, dead cold, and the axe now leaning against the hearth. That was the first time I asked myself out loud, am I the one chopping? I left the cabin just after first light, hoping distance would shake off whatever had settled in me during the night. But the woods weren't the same. Trees I'd passed 100 times seemed unfamiliar, leaning inward like the whole ridge was huddling against something. I checked my compass twice, then a 3rd time. The needle held steady, but I didn't trust it. I was walking with purpose, but it felt like I was circling something I hadn't chosen to find. That evening, I made camp further off, near a stream where I used to hunt turkey. The water was running clear, the air sharper now. I tried to sleep early, thinking maybe exhaustion had played a part in all of this. But when midnight came, I was already awake. 6 swings this time, not like before. Slower, measured. Each one sent a vibration through the ground beneath me, like whatever swung the axe was closer than trees allowed. I stood and didn't bother with the fire. just grabbed my rifle and walked back toward the cabin, even though I didn't mean to. Something about those strikes, those perfect, deliberate blows drew me in like gravity. The woods gave no resistance, no bramble scratched me, no stone turned underfoot. When I reached the clearing, the stump was empty. No axe, no fire, no cabin. Only earth, flat, undisturbed. I staggered forward. Sure I'd come to the right place. I walked where the steps should have creaked, reached for the door that wasn't there. Nothing. Just pine needles and silence. I turned in a slow circle, half certain I'd lost my mind, when I noticed it along the edge of a black spruce, an impression in the bark, maybe 4 feet high, long, clean, like a blade had been buried into it, and left. The 7th night. I left my tent zipped and my fire cold. I sat with the axe across my lap. Not the bloody one, it was gone. This was mine, my grandfather's, old steel and red-painted hickory. I kept it close, not because I thought it would help, but because if something came, I wanted to feel ready. I didn't sleep. The chopping began as before 7 this time. And then a pause, long enough to make me think it was over. Then a voice from the woods, low and near and dragging with something that didn't belong to lungs. "You still chopping?" Edsel had asked. My blood stopped. The voice was my own. I don't know how long I sat there. Could have been hours. Could have been seconds. When dawn came, I didn't move. I watched the shadows flee and felt something leave with them, something I hadn't known was sitting on my chest. I left Beech Mountain by foot. Didn't stop until the ridge fell behind me. I didn't tell anyone. Not for a long time. But months later, back home, I woke to the sound again. Chop, chop. Once. Then silence. I went outside. My backyard was empty. No trees nearby, but there, stuck in the ground beside the porch, was the same axe blade up, stained deep red, handle clean. My own axe still hung on the barn wall where I'd left it. I didn't touch the one in the yard, still haven't. Now, every year on the 7th of October, the wind shifts. It doesn't howl or gust. It pulses like the breath of something ancient. And on those nights, I don't light the fire, I don't leave the house. I just sit by the window, eyes fixed on the tree line, waiting for the 8th swing. My name's Mason Whitaker, and I'm a 3rd-year geology student out of Morgantown. I came to Oconee Hollow to map out some unusual ridgelines, slate disruptions that don't quite match the surrounding strata. It was quiet country, thick with laurel and old whispers. But I wasn't chasing folklore. I had a grant, a map, and 2 weeks to document fault lines near a trail that looped in a neat 3-mile circle. At least, it was supposed to. The first day was fine muddy, but manageable. I marked my points, shot some panoramas, and noted an odd tree at the western curve of the loop. Someone had carved 1891 into the trunk, deep and old. The numbers were uneven, almost like they'd been scraped in haste. But the bark had healed oddly around them, puckered inward like a scar swallowing the wound. I noted it and moved on. Didn't think anything of it until I passed it again an hour later, without turning back. I stopped, checked my GPS. It showed I was still on the loop. Maybe I'd misjudged the curve, doubled back without meaning to. I laughed, chalked it up to fatigue, and walked on. But when I passed that same tree a 3rd time, same angle, same light slanting through the branches, I stopped laughing. The air was too still. Not dead, just paused, like the forest was holding its breath. I checked my watch, 2:17 p.m. I marked it, then took a side trail that wasn't on the map, just a faint deer path leading east. 15 minutes later, I passed the tree again. Same 1891, same gouged bark, same cluster of moss below it. This time I circled the tree, ran my hand across the numbers. The bark was cool, damp with dew that hadn't burned off despite the heat. My watch still read 2:17. That's when I noticed the sound, or lack of it. The birds had stopped. No wind, not even the buzz of gnats. I stood completely still and listened. The silence wasn't absence. It was presence. Something waiting. I turned back to my camp marker, convinced now I'd looped wrong. Walked brisk and straight for nearly 30 minutes. But when I broke through the bramble, there it was again, the tree. The carving. 1891. A mocking little monument. That's when the first thread of fear truly wound tight in my chest. I checked my compass. It spun once, slowly, then stopped due west. I turned that way and walked. The trail narrowed, the air thickened. Somewhere along that route, I stopped seeing my boot prints. I'd been watching for them, careful not to double back. But they were gone, swallowed. By dusk, I found a clearing. Strange, almost too clean. A single log and the remains of a fire ring. Long dead. I set up camp there, not because I wanted to, but because it felt like the trail had ended. My radio pinged once, then went dead. I tried my phone. No bars. The clock still said 2:17. I didn't sleep. Not really. Just drifted in and out. Half alert. At some point past midnight, I heard movement outside, dry leaves shifting, then a soft thud. When I looked out, there was nothing but shadow. But something was off about the fire ring. One of the stones was cracked straight down the middle, fresh, like it had been split. In the morning, the air was warmer than it should have been, muggy. My water tasted metallic. I packed quickly and followed a ridgeline north, using the sun as best I could. After an hour, I found a trail marker I didn't recognize. It simply said, "Home is behind." I turned back, heart hammering, and nearly collided with a tree. The same tree. I didn't scream, just stood there with my hand still on the bark, feeling the numbers under my palm like they'd grown out of me. It wasn't just that I was back, it was how the tree looked different this time. The bark was damp again, but darker now, almost black around the edges of the carving. I noticed something I hadn't before, a small notch just beneath the one, as if someone had started to carve another number and stopped. I backed away, slowly, and turned in a wide arc, trying not to look at the tree as I left it behind. By then, I'd stopped using the compass. It didn't matter. Directions were suggestions now, not truths. I followed the slope downward, figuring that valleys meant water and water meant roads. For a moment, it even worked. I found a creek I hadn't seen before. Cold, running fast, too fast for how dry the season had been. I knelt to drink, and that's when I saw it, a pocket watch lying in the water, cracked open, face down. I fished it out. It was old, brass, with initials scratched into the back HH. The glass was shattered. The hands were stuck at 2:17. That was when I stopped pretending it was coincidence. I sat there, dripping, and stared into the forest like it might offer some explanation. I pulled out my own phone again. It powered on. The date still read October 9th. But when I tried to access the time, the screen locked up and froze, the second hand trembling, never ticking forward. I checked the timestamp on one of my voice memos. It read October 11th. Somehow, 2 days had passed, and I'd only lived one. I tried to retrace every hour, every step. I couldn't. There were gaps, whole moments missing, as if they'd been edited out of me. My last clear memory was arriving at the clearing and setting camp. After that, it was all blinks and cuts, like skipping stones across a black lake. The only constant was the tree. Always that tree. Always 1891. At sunset, I heard someone calling my name. Not a yell, not urgent, just soft, familiar. It sounded like my roommate back home, Micah, but with something flattened in the tone, like a recording played through old tape. I didn't respond. I stayed low, breath shallow. The voice moved through the woods around me. Not closer, not farther, just circling. That night, I lit no fire. I sat with my back to a tree and waited for dawn. The voice came 3 more times. Always the same inflection. Always just far enough that I could pretend it might not be real. But the worst part wasn't the sound. It was the shape I saw just after midnight. A figure standing still, far off, barely visible between trunks, not moving, watching. The moonlight didn't touch it right, and when I blinked, it was gone. In the morning, I ran. No path, just raw instinct. I scraped my shin open on a root and didn't care. I ran until the air burned in my throat and my legs gave. When I stopped, heart pounding, I found myself in another clearing smaller this time. In the center, propped against a stone, was a photograph, my university ID, snapped clean in half. I fell to my knees. For a long time, I couldn't move. Just stared at that picture like it would explain how it had gotten here. Miles from anywhere. I didn't remember dropping it. Hell, it hadn't been in my pack. I only carry a digital now. But there it was. Split, deliberate, like someone had placed it to be found. That was when I knew I wasn't just lost. I was being followed, or led. Eventually, I walked, stumbled, really, and finally, after who knows how long, I broke out onto asphalt. A narrow road. A park ranger truck pulled up within minutes. The man inside looked at me like I'd crawled out of a grave. Said they'd been looking for me since Sunday. It was Tuesday. They said I must have hit my head. Got confused. Stayed in the woods too long. But I never camped twice. Never ran out of food. My stove canister was still full. My tent was dry. And my voice recorder, it had 3 hours of audio I don't remember recording, most of it static. But in the middle, there's a voice not mine that says, "Loop's not closed. Try again." I haven't gone back. Won't. But sometimes I still dream of that tree. And the carving's different now. It says 2023. I came back to Clay County after 13 years away. Not because I wanted to, but because Mama couldn't remember who I was on the phone anymore. My name's Laurel, 31, the kind of granddaughter who swore she'd never return to these hollers. But when the neighbor called and said Mama was wandering at dusk in her nightgown, barefoot, I packed up and drove south. Her homestead sat where the tree line folds in hard, one of those places that still doesn't show up right on GPS. Folks used to say the land out here bends sound, that bells didn't ring right past the ridge. I never believed it. Not really. The first night, I got the goat settled. Old thing, white and stubborn. The last of what used to be Mama's small herd. I fed it, latched the gate, and double-checked the coop before turning in. But just past midnight, I woke to a sound I hadn't heard since I was a child. A bell deep and off-key ringing once. Then again, 7 times in slow succession. It came from somewhere beyond the tree line, where no path ever held long. I stared out the window, but there was no light, just the woods breathing slow and black. Next morning, I found the goat bleeding. Not a wound, not a scratch, not a thorn prick or bite mark. Just blood soaked through the hay beneath her. Her legs were slick with it, but her skin was untouched. I knelt and wiped her clean twice, trying to find where it was coming from. There was nothing, not even a scab. I tried to tell myself it could have been a birth issue, something internal. But she hadn't been bred in years, and by dusk, the blood was gone. Mama was worse that day. Kept asking when he was coming back. When I asked who, she just shook her head and said, "You know, the one with the crooked hands." She wouldn't eat. Just watched the window like it might speak. I let her sleep and stayed up reading, trying to keep my mind off the bell. It rang again. Same time. 7 chimes. I recorded it on my phone, but when I played it back, there was nothing. Just static, no wind, no goat, no bell. By the 3rd night, I started leaving the porch light on. It didn't help. The bell rang again, and this time, I swear, I heard something walking between the trees just after. Heavy, deliberate, like someone dragging a boot that didn't fit right. I locked the door and waited it out. At dawn, I found a trail of backward footprints in the dew. Not mine, not Mama's, starting at the goat pen and leading into the woods. The goat didn't bleed that night. She was gone. Not a trace. No fur. No blood this time. The gate was still latched. I walked the perimeter twice, calling her name, even though I knew it was pointless. Mama sat on the porch when I returned. She was humming something low and slow. I asked if she'd heard the bell again. She said, "It's not a bell, baby. That's a warning." I asked what it warned of. She smiled, the kind of smile that knows too much. "When it rings 7, she said, something's been let go." I started sleeping in the front room, shotgun across my lap and the porch light burning dull through the glass. I didn't know what I expected to stop, only that whatever was ringing that bell wasn't meant to be touched. On the 5th night, Mama disappeared from her bed. No sound, no broken door, no creak of floorboards. I found the covers folded back, her slippers by the bedside, on the windowsill. An old brass bell sat upside down, one I didn't remember ever seeing in the house. Its surface was sealed with thick wax, like someone had tried to smother the sound inside. I searched the woods with the sun barely up, calling for her until my throat scraped raw. No answer. But a ways down the old hunting trail, I found a strange patch of cleared leaves, perfectly circular. In the center stood a tree split but still upright, and jammed into the cleft was a length of cotton nightgown. Mama's. I pulled it loose, hands shaking, and followed the direction the footprints went. They weren't normal, not even animal. They moved backward, heel first, long and staggered like the person making them didn't know how walking was supposed to work. That night, I didn't wait inside. I stood on the porch with the bell in my hand and dared it to ring. Just before midnight. It did. Not the one I held, but from deep in the woods, muffled and strange, like it was underwater. 7 times again. And this time, it echoed. The trees didn't like that. They shivered, not from wind, but from something moving between them. Something bigger than a deer. Something slower than a man. I raised the shotgun when I saw the figure step out from the trees. It looked like Mama at first, her frame, her gray shawl, but her eyes weren't hers. They were pitch and hollow, pulling in light. Her mouth moved, and though no words came out, I heard something in my head. It's your turn now, baby. I backed up, but she didn't follow. Just stood there, head tilting further than a neck should bend, staring like she'd never blink again. When I looked away for half a second, she was gone. I left the next morning, packed everything that wasn't nailed down, took what little Mama had left behind. I called the neighbor, told her the land was hers if she wanted it. She didn't. Weeks passed, then months. I tried to move on, forget it, bury the whole thing like bad weather. But sometimes late, when the house is too still, I hear a bell. Not 7 rings, just one, close enough to taste the metal on the air. And in my dreams, Mama walks the woods barefoot, humming a tune I've started to remember, a lullaby she never taught me, the last time I dreamed it. She stopped, turned, and held up that same inverted bell. Only this time, the wax was cracked. We were 6 rangers that day, 3 senior. 3 fresh, but every one of us quieted down once we crossed the tree line near Black Mountain Crest. There was something about the air there. Not cold, not heavy, just still. It was supposed to be routine trail inspection after a minor rock slide the week before. I'd been with the Forest Service 8 years, and I'd never seen a section that swallowed sound the way this one did. You could shout and hear nothing back. Not even the birds dared interrupt it. It started small. Radios stopped working, even the backups. No static, no feedback, just dead. I remember Tyler trying to test the signal, walking ahead while calling in every 30 feet. His voice didn't carry. Even a whistle died 5 feet out. We laughed about it at first, blamed the terrain, the rock shelf overhead. But the deeper we went, the more we realized it wasn't just the radios. It was everything. We tried clapping, calling, even stomping the trail in rhythm. Nothing bounced back. It was like the forest itself refused to acknowledge us. At one point, I dropped my water bottle just to hear something that didn't get swallowed. It hit the ground. Sure, but even that sounded like it was miles away. I looked around and realized I couldn't even hear the footfalls of the ranger behind me. I turned and asked if they'd heard anything odd. Their mouths moved, but the words didn't sound right. Too soft, like they were speaking from underwater. About 3 miles in, we found the stone. Massive, half buried in the slope. Odd shape, almost rectangular, and along one side, smoothed flat, were 5 impressions, each one shaped like a hand. Human-sized, pressed in deep, as if something heavy had leaned on it. We all stood around it, not speaking at first, just looking. Then Harper reached out and set his palm against one of the indentations. The instant he touched it, every bird in the forest screamed. A single, sharp burst like a warning. Then silence again. Not just quiet, blank. like the world had skipped a beat and wasn't sure how to start again. Harper jerked back, eyes wide. He didn't speak for the rest of the day. None of us did. We decided to mark the spot and head back. There was nothing else to find. And frankly, the silence had started to wear thin. But when we turned around, the trail behind us looked different. Too flat. The turns were wrong. The overgrowth had shifted. One of the rookies pointed out a set of boot prints ahead of us, ours. Supposedly, but they were deeper, older looking, like we were following ourselves from another time. And then we heard it. A voice, high up in the canopy, drifting down like a breath on the wind. We're still here. It didn't echo, just arrived, hung in the air, and vanished. We froze, every one of us, like prey hearing something too clever to run from. The voice wasn't angry or urgent, it was almost calm, but it didn't sound like any of ours. It had a weight to it, like it had been said 100 times before and just waited for ears. Tyler raised his head toward the canopy, lips parted, but he didn't speak. None of us did. Not really. We just looked at each other like maybe someone else had an answer. Then the wind came in. A single gust, sudden and heavy, bending branches but making no sound. Leaves trembled, but not one rustled. I watched a cluster of dry pine needles fall from above, hit my shoulder, and slide off without a whisper. I clapped again hard this time, desperate to hear something, but still nothing echoed back. It was like we'd wandered into a part of the world the laws forgot. We pressed on. It felt wrong to stay still too long. The trail narrowed, but we moved without speaking. After another mile, I started to recognize the terrain, but not how I should have. It wasn't just familiar. It was identical. A bent root, a crooked boulder, a twisted patch of blackberry thorns. I looked to Harper, saw the sweat on his temple despite the cold. I asked if we were looping, but his eyes just flicked forward. He already knew. Eventually, we came to a fork in the trail that shouldn't have existed. Two paths, mirror images of each other, like someone had copied and pasted the land. Both seemed to descend. Both showed the same dark notch of trees at the far end. We took the left, not because it felt right, but because someone, maybe me, maybe not, said we hadn't tried it yet. As we walked, I kept hearing something just under hearing. A rhythm, like footfalls behind us that never quite matched ours. The voice came again, maybe an hour later. Same words. We're still here, only this time. It came from beside us, not the trees, the ground. I saw one of the rookies, Jesse, drop his pack and cover his ears. He started whispering to himself, fast and low. When I touched his shoulder, he flinched like I'd burned him. Said something about the voice being shaped like his mother's. We found the stone again, the same massive slab with the hand impressions. But now, the moss had grown thicker. The handprints had multiplied. There were more than 5. Dozens now, maybe more. All slightly different sizes, some deeper, some newer, like people had been here, or like they'd been added. I didn't count them. None of us did. We just stood in a rough circle, not quite ready to say what we knew. Someone, maybe Harper, asked the question, were any rangers ever reported missing out here? Tyler shook his head. Not officially. But the silence answered different. We turned back. This time we walked faster, ignoring the compass, ignoring the GPS. Just moved. The sun dipped hard and fast, shadows stretching like they were chasing. But at some point, the air shifted, thinned, and the trail widened. We broke through to gravel near the ranger trucks, just after dark. The moment my boot hit pavement, I could hear again the crunch, the wind, the breath in my throat. The world had volume. We didn't speak much after that. We filed our reports, called it a weather anomaly, topographic distortion, fault lines, you name it. Anything but what it was. But sometimes on still days, alone on trail, I'll test the wind with a word or a whistle, just to be sure I'm still where I think I am. And when nothing comes back, I turn around, because whatever's out there in that part of the trail, it doesn't want to be forgotten. It wants to be followed. We weren't looking for anything strange when we found the cave. Just a short hike. A quiet weekend. I'd been dating Elise for almost a year, and this was the first time we'd taken time away from people. Raven's Cave was marked on an old trail map. Nothing official. Just a little X and the word Raven scribbled in someone's handwriting. Virginia forest, quiet ridgeline. Dry weather, it seemed perfect. No one else on the trail. No recent hikers signed in at the ranger post. We parked, packed light, and took the narrow path that wound down behind the brush. The cave opened like a mouth, low and broad, half-shadowed even in the noon sun. We ducked inside, stepping between slick rock and dry leaves. Cool air curled from the depths, smelled like old iron and dust. I remember Elise joking that it felt too quiet to be empty. We found it 10 minutes in, at a point where the tunnel narrowed and sloped slightly downward. A wind chime, just there hanging from a twisted root in the ceiling. It shouldn't have been able to move, not that deep. But it did. The chime was made of tiny bones bird, maybe rabbit and strung with black cord. Crow feathers knotted through it, stiff and brittle. When I reached toward it, Elise stopped me. "Don't touch it," she said. I asked why. She didn't answer. Her face was pale, jaw set. I'd never seen her look like that before. We turned back. Hike ruined, mood gone. She didn't speak the whole way to the car. When I asked what was wrong, she finally said, "I've seen something like that before. When I was a kid, on my grandfather's land. He told me never to follow the sound." That night, she woke me with her hand on my arm. Said she'd been dreaming of birds, hundreds of them, black and eyeless, flapping in a cave that wouldn't end. She was shaking. Said she could still hear the bell. I listened, held her close. I didn't hear anything. But the next night, I did. It was faint at first, like a breath of metal caught in the hallway. I sat up, thinking maybe the neighbor's wind chime had caught a breeze, even though it had been dead calm all day. Elise was already awake. She didn't say anything, just stared at the far wall like it might open. The sound came again, soft, deliberate, each chime distinct. Not a melody, a pattern, and it wasn't outside. The wind chime from the cave had followed us. I checked every room, opened every window. Nothing, just stillness. But the moment I turned off the lights and climbed back into bed, the sound resumed closer now, like it was coming from the ceiling or just under the floorboards. Elise whispered, "Don't answer it." I asked what she meant, but she wouldn't explain. She just closed her eyes and started whispering something under her breath, something low and rhythmic. I recognized it eventually. It was the same phrase, over and over, in Appalachian German, Her grandfather's side. A prayer. The next morning, I went through our gear. The bones weren't there, of course. Neither were the feathers. But our tent reeked of smoke, like we'd camped beside a fire we hadn't built. My sleeping bag had a small tear at the foot, a perfect half circle, like something had been gnawing from the outside. Elise wouldn't go near it. She spent most of the day on the porch, rocking slowly, muttering pieces of that same prayer. I asked her again, gently, what she remembered about the first time she saw the chime. She said her grandfather had found one hanging above a barn door after their goats vanished. Said he burned it. Said it screamed. That night. She spoke in her sleep. The voice wasn't hers. It was low, male, with an accent I couldn't place, thick, clipped, older than anything we'd grown up around. It repeated one word, return, over and over. I tried waking her, shaking her shoulder, calling her name. Nothing worked. Her eyes opened mid-sentence. But they didn't look at me, just stared past me, unfocused. Then the bell rang again louder. Sharper, this time. It came from the crawl space under the house. I didn't go down there. I should say that outright. Whatever it was. It didn't want to be seen, it wanted to be heard. And hearing was already too much. But I did check the hatch the next morning. Unlatched, inside, beneath the boards, was a thin braid of black cord and 3 small bones tied in a circle. No dust, no spiderwebs. Fresh. Elise was gone when I came back up. Door wide open, no shoes. I found her standing at the tree line out back. Eyes closed, face tilted toward the windless sky. She was humming something low and sharp, like a lullaby cracked in half. I called to her. She didn't move. When I touched her arm, she shuddered once and said, "He's almost done ringing." We didn't sleep that night, just waited. At midnight, the bell rang once more long, drawn out, like it was pulling something behind it. Then silence, deep, aching, unnatural. The kind of silence that feels like a held breath from something bigger than the room you're in. Elise stood and walked to the window, whispered, "He's passed through." She's been different ever since. Not wrong, just quiet, softer. She forgets things more now, like her voice doesn't quite fit in her mouth some days. But the bell hasn't rung again, and the feathers are gone. Sometimes, late at night, she whispers in that same low voice, not hers. Not anymore. I've started recording the audio when she does. On playback. There's something else layered underneath. A second voice. A man's voice. And I swear it says my name. Old Elkmont was one of those ghost towns you stumble into because your map didn't warn you well enough. I'd been photographing forgotten places for years, abandoned mines, derelict barns, whole towns where the light just stopped falling, right? Elkmont had been a logging camp once, then a private resort, then nothing. They say the park claimed it, let the trees eat it whole. That's where I found the cabin. No number, no name. Just a square of sagging wood tucked behind a dead magnolia, with glass in the windows that still managed to reflect the sky like they remembered how. I only found it because something glowed inside. Not brightly, just faint, like candlelight under a blanket. It was dusk, and I figured some other explorer had lit a fire or maybe left a lantern going. But when I stepped onto the porch, I felt it an old weight in the boards, like no one had touched them in decades. I knocked. Nothing. Tried the door. It gave with a creak too sharp for any recent use. The light flickered inside, steady as breath. The cabin smelled like dust and wax and something colder beneath. Floorboards warped like they were curling inward. On a crooked table beneath the window sat a candle, thick and pale. Wick lit but untouched, no matches nearby. No lighter. The flame didn't dance, just burned. And beside it, an open journal. The paper was yellowed, but the ink was wet. My name was written on the top of the page, Elias Brandt, and beneath it, you returned. I backed out slow, camera forgotten in my hand. I hadn't told anyone I was coming out here, hadn't posted, hadn't texted. The light behind me didn't change, didn't dim. I walked back to my car, left everything as it was, told myself I'd imagined it. Maybe stumbled into a ranger post someone had repurposed. But when I came back 3 nights later, the cabin was glowing again. Same flame, same table, same journal. Only this time, the page read, "Welcome back." I should have left it alone. Walked back to the car, and never returned. But there's something about seeing your name written in a place you've never been that makes you feel tethered, like you've already stepped too deep. This time, I brought a flashlight, extra batteries, and a fresh memory card. I told myself I'd document it. Prove something what? Exactly. I didn't know. Maybe that the place existed. Maybe that I hadn't made it up. Inside, nothing had changed. The candle burned with that same motionless flame. No heat radiated from it. The journal still lay open, the same pen resting beside it, uncapped but never dry. The next page was blank, except for a single line at the bottom. Ask what you came for. I didn't write that. I hadn't come with a question. But something in me stirred, like I'd forgotten something I was supposed to remember only here. I sat. The air had that quiet weight to it, like a church right before the hymn. I reached out and turned the page, blank again, until the words appeared slowly, one after another, like invisible ink surfacing beneath breath. It isn't the first time. I whispered aloud without meaning to. What isn't? The candle flickered once, then steadied. The page remained unchanged. I flipped further ahead. Pages and pages already filled dozens of them, in handwriting too close to mine to dismiss. Some were short phrases, others longer, tangled thoughts. One said, "The forest keeps its promises." Another, "The first time you came, you didn't leave alone." And one that stopped my breath cold, "Don't follow your double if he walks out first." I stood, closed the journal, took the candle, still burning, and walked outside. The sky had darkened faster than it should have. Clouds moving low, strange and fast, like they didn't belong to this place. The forest watched, not with eyes, with intent. I felt it in the stillness of the trees, the way the path back to the trailhead had narrowed without me noticing. At the car, I checked the journal again. It was still in my pack. Pages still warm to the touch, but the ink had changed. My name had been crossed out. Below it, another name I didn't recognize. Thomas Glenn. That's when I heard movement behind me, footsteps, soft but definite. Coming up from the trail I had just walked. I turned, flashlight raised. No one! But on the passenger seat of my locked car lay another journal. Identical. A perfect match. Same binding. Same age. I hadn't seen it when I left. I didn't open it. Not then. I drove back to town with the candle still lit, nestled in a cup holder like it belonged there. spark never flickered, never dripped. I placed it on my desk when I got home. It still hasn't gone out. It's been 12 nights. Sometimes, when the room is quiet enough, I hear pages turning on their own. And when I check the journal, there's always something new. Things I haven't written. Memories I don't recall living. And always on the last page, my name. Underneath it. A single question. What will you bring back next time? We weren't talking much that day, not because we were angry, but because the forest had taken it out of us. My sister, June, had always loved hiking more than I did. I was tagging along because she asked. And because the Monongahela was still one of the few places that didn't feel like it owed you an explanation. The air up there hums a little differently, like the hills remember more than they're letting on. We parked early and set out before the sun had crested the ridge. Trail markers worn and half faded. Just how June liked it. The trail was narrow. Pine needle soft underfoot. We took our time. She'd gotten quiet somewhere after the second mile. Eyes forward, lips pressed. I didn't press her. We'd been out of sync since Dad died, and I figured the silence was better than the arguing we'd been falling into. So I just followed, watching the rhythm of her boots, the way her pack swayed slightly to one side. It wasn't until we rounded the last bend that I realized something was off. There was someone ahead of us, walking out of the woods. Same height, same posture, same clothes, same face. I stopped cold. June didn't. She kept walking, not even noticing. The figure ahead never looked back. It stepped out into the parking lot, where our car waited, and vanished behind the trees beyond it. June didn't break stride. She walked right past me, like nothing was strange, like I hadn't just seen her reflection walk out of the woods ahead of her. By the time I caught up to her, she was already unzipping her pack like the hike had ended. I asked if she saw the woman ahead. She said, "What woman?" I said. "The one who looked like you." June stared at me for a second too long, then smiled flat. Slow. I was leading, she said. No one walked ahead. The ride home felt colder than it should have. June stared out the window most of the way, fingers drumming a slow, steady rhythm on her thigh. I tried to ask again softly this time about what I'd seen. She just said I must have been tired, maybe caught a reflection on the windshield. But the thing is, I hadn't been looking through glass. I'd been watching the trail, watching her. And I know what I saw. That night, I went through the photos on my phone. Mostly trees, some trail markers. One of June ahead of me with her back turned. But one shot stopped me. It was blurry, unfocused, like my hand had moved while taking it. But there were two Junes in the frame. One walking ahead, one already standing just beyond the trailhead. The faces were smeared, motionless, like the pixels didn't want to settle into anything human. I didn't tell her about it. Something in me knew not to. The next morning, June made breakfast. She was humming something under her breath, a tune I recognized but couldn't name. I asked her where she picked it up. She paused for a beat, then said, "You used to hum it when we were little." I didn't remember that. But later, while washing dishes, I caught myself humming it too, not out of memory, out of echo. 3 days later, I found a second toothbrush beside the sink, identical to hers, same color, same wear on the bristles. When I asked her about it, She blinked like she was surprised to see it there. Said she must have forgotten she already had one. But she didn't throw it out, just left it, like it belonged now. At night, I started waking to the sound of footsteps in the hallway. Not heavy, not dragging, just calm, measured steps, like someone pacing in socks. June always claimed she was asleep. One night, I called her name while the footsteps passed my door. She answered from the other side of the house. I checked the hallway. Empty. A week later, I came across the photo again while clearing out storage on my phone. I tried to delete it. The screen froze, then turned black. When it came back on, the photo was gone, but in its place was a new image, the same trailhead. Empty this time, but with a caption beneath it I hadn't written. It said, "She came back wrong." I confronted her. She laughed at first, until I showed her the caption. Her smile faltered. "Maybe you're the one who changed," she said. Not cruelly, just like it was a fact. Since then, little things have shifted. June's handwriting looks just a little different. She started using phrases she never used before. "So be it." You'll see like she's reading lines off a page. Last night, I caught her standing at the mirror, not doing anything, just watching her own face. She didn't blink, didn't move for over 10 minutes. I went back to the trail yesterday, alone. Same weather, same silence. No one else there. When I reached the bend where it happened, I stood for a long time. Then I saw something in the dirt. 2 sets of footprints, walking side by side, both mine.